top of page 3 for section 9.2, we've done some multiplying. Now we're going to do some dividing of radicals. And you'll notice they reference the quotient rule for square roots. Same idea as with multiplying. We were able to, if you had a radical times a radical, you could put it all under 1. If you had, you know, something here, you had some sort of triangle and a circle, well, let's make it a flower so it doesn't look like 0. You could multiply that flower and triangle together. Whatever those two things were, you could put them multiplied together under the same radical. And then you could split them up again based on what you needed in terms of simplifying. So there was this idea of you could smush them together and then you could split them according to what you needed to do for simplification. Simplify. Same idea with quotient, meaning division. Okay, how do you divide radicals? Well, if they're all in 1, you can split that. In number 74 here, you've got radical x squared over 49, big fraction there. But the radical can be split. You can, because a fraction is the same as division. Let's make sure we note that. It's essentially the top divided by the bottom, or numerator divided by the denominator. Let's be, you know, technical here. So you can split this into radical x squared, or square root of x squared, over radical 49, or square root of 49. And then you can see, then once you split it, you can see, well, now do I have something that I can simplify? Yes, the square root of x squared by definition is just x, and the square root of 49 is 7. So this simplifies to x over 7. In the same way, you could think of it as, well, and this is a little harder, but underneath the radical, is there a fraction times itself that exactly matches? Well, in this case there is. X over 7 times x over 7 gives you that. The square root of that would then just be x over 7 by definition of square root. But it's not always going to be the case, so we need to know how to split and recombine as needed. Let's look at number 82, what's different. Well, as we look at this one, it starts with a radical on the top, radical on the bottom. Well, that's great for number 74 because we knew the square root of x squared and we knew the square root of 49 as to be nice numbers. To be a nice number and to work out with the variable. But square root of 60 is not a nice number. 60 is not a perfect square. And the square root of 5 is definitely not a nice number. 5 is not a perfect square. So now we need to apply the reverse of that. Just like with multiplying, you could smush and then split as needed. We can smush this together, and what you get is one big radical of 60 over 5. And again, fraction is the same as division, top divided by bottom. That is radical 12. And then from our earlier notes on simplifying, this is 12 is the same as 4 times 3. That can split into radical 4, radical 3, and then we know radical 4, square root of 4 to be just plain 2. So 2 radical 3 would be the final simplified version of that. And again, the more practice you get with these, you're going to start to feel comfortable with not showing as much work. But until it starts to sink in what you're doing, if you're a little rusty or this is fairly new material for yourself, take the time to write the steps out. It will help unlock things. And especially if you're a verbal or auditory learner, talk it out as you do it. It will start cementing it in your brain for yourself. Find several phrases that it's a way to describe it for yourself so that it makes sense. But also, they're kind of small, catchy phrases that you can kind of memorize and say them over and over. In other words, you're memorizing the steps for the problem, and it will help you come test time. Okay, so these are not overly complicated. Don't overthink these. We're just going to attempt to simplify here, and the quotient rule is just that. You can division and radicals are fluid. They can go back and forth. So once you're ready and you've copied the notes, noted any questions, go ahead and try number 76. You might want to start asking yourself, what's different and does that matter? Is it going to change how we do this problem? And then pause the video, try it, come back, see how you did. After you've tried 76, first of all, asking the question, what's different? Well, you've got variables on the bottom. That's not going to change the quotient rule. You can still split this, radical 13 on the top, radical x to the sixth. The other thing you might notice is, well, 13 doesn't go anywhere. It's going to stay in the radical, and that's totally fine. Your final version actually is going to be radical 13 on top, x cubed on the bottom. And again, I'm happy to go over the try questions or anything from your notes that's bugging you in class. That's what class time really gets to be devoted for, is your questions, really breaking apart what you're stuck on and really helping everybody.